Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make sense. Hi everyone. I was really looking forward to talk to Mandy about her spiritual path. We have been friends for many years, and I somehow feel connected to her in spirit, and has felt it from when we met, although I have no idea what her spirituality actually entails. This is thus going to be an interesting chat for me. This is also my first recording off-site, so I hope that the sound quality is good. Let's hear what we can learn from Mandy. Right, Mandy, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. And you?
I'm awesome.
Great.
I'm loving your space. I'm loving Komiki. For the people who don't know, we are in Komiki for the weekend, and I'm speaking to my friend Mandy. And she has a lovely house overlooking the sea, and we've taken her new doggy Ben for a walk this morning already and went for a lovely breakfast. So really an awesome space. So it's lovely to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for visiting us.
Absolutely welcome. And thanks for chatting to me. Mandy, you're one of those people whom I've known for a bloody long time. Since what, 95?
I think it was about 95. 95, 96.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Where we met at Appleton.
Yeah, when we worked together. And since I've known you, and we've gone through some deep waters together.
Indeed.
I don't think we've ever discussed spirituality or religion or anything like that. So I know nothing about you in terms of what you believe in, what your thoughts are about spiritual religion type of things. Mm-hmm. And it's quite weird when I do these talks. I always think about what do I know about these people in that regard. And invariably the answer is nothing. And I don't know whether it's that old age thing that we don't discuss religion and politics around the table, that we just don't talk about it. And being in recovery, for my recovery friends, it's obvious because that's what it's based. But for my non-recovery friends like yourself, we don't talk about it because it's just not something we talk about.
Well, I guess when we see each other as well, there's so much to catch up on, and we tend to focus on that. You know? Whereas I have a running friend who is a devout Christian, and we spend a lot of time talking about spirituality when we run together, because as devout a Christian as she is, you would never say so, because she swears like the rest of us and does wild things like the rest of us, but she's absolutely committed to her fairly charismatic Christianity. So we have lots of discussions because spirituality is important to me. I think that it's one of the foundations of your personality. Yeah. I think you need to look after your physical health, your mental health, and your mental health is closely aligned to your spirituality. So from my perspective, I was influenced quite a lot by my first visit to Cambodia, which was a holiday, and I was taken aback by how profoundly peaceful the people in Cambodia were, and how forgiving they were when one considered that the Pol Pot regime had been so awful. The entire experience in Cambodia was absolutely vile, and it was not that long ago. I mean, it was sort of 1994.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that we met had family members who were, summarily executed because Pol Pot, as you know, decided that he needed to obliterate all the university-educated people. And there are some very, very moving places where you can get an idea of what they went through as a nation. And then you meet these people who can talk to you about losing parents and losing siblings, and they are so forgiving. So that kind of fascinated me, and I loved the gentleness of Buddhism. And I started exploring that more. I came back and went to a couple of sessions at the Buddhist Center in Wynberg.
Okay.
Where Rob Nan, who is a UCT professor, I think he was a UCT professor of psychology, but he's also a very active member of that Weinberg Buddhist Center. So I'd go there in the evenings and listen to talks and also to learn how to meditate. So yeah, that's kind of where my spiritual journey has been, but it's been a bit of a stop-start journey, so things come along and I not forget about it. I don't practice it.
Yeah.
I don't discipline myself, because it is about discipline. You have to actually start each day with meditation.
Yeah.
Discipline is not one of my strong points, unfortunately.
And as I say, if you don't use it, you lose it. So it's interesting that a lot of times you talk about a religious discipline or spiritual discipline, and exactly what it is. You need to have a discipline of practicing this on a regular basis. My favorite word at this moment is spiritual fitness.
Yeah.
I love that term, because it says so clearly that we need to have a sense of spiritual strength to deal with life at this stage. How did you grow up? Somewhere in my back of my head, I get kind of a organized religion background.
I grew up in an Anglican
Okay.
family. I was christened and
Confirmed.
confirmed.
Yeah.
That's right.
Affirmed.
Confirmed in the Anglican Church. My mum had a very strong faith and was a regular churchgoer and trusted in God completely. My father was more inclined to believe in a higher being, but he wasn't quite sure where it was and didn't necessarily follow a specific doctrine.
Okay.
And as a young girl at school, I was quite heavily influenced by the charismatic Christian wave. I don't know if you recall that sort of swept over South Africa, where there was kind of mass hysteria about things like, schools were being warned that children shouldn't listen to certain songs.
Those were the days when the Remus Church started in Johannesburg, because I grew up in Johannesburg. Who was the starter of that? I can't remember his name.
It was Ray McCauley.
Yes.
And I think that so it spread through our school as well, particularly through our boarding school. And we were taken to, I can't remember what the church was called, but the big thing was that you had to be slain in the spirit and talk in tongues, So that was, if that didn't happen to you, you kind of hadn't got your naughty badge.
Oh my God.
It was quite an interesting but also weird part.
And did it resonate with you?
No. Well, I thought it did, but I mean, it didn't last very long.
Okay.
So I moved away from that, and I think quite a few people are surprised when I tell them that I'm more inclined to Buddhism than I am to Christianity. Although I do believe that whatever deity or higher being is there, I think whether you are Muslim or Christian or Buddhist, I think we're all actually seeking the same thing.
Yeah.
And that higher being is the same for all of us. I find it incredibly sad that there's so many wars fought in the name of religion, where ultimately they should all be striving for peace and harmony and compassion.
Absolutely. So, I love that saying that says that if your God prescribes killing for religion, then surely you're praying to the wrong God.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with that whole dogma type of thing.
Yeah.
You grew up on a farm.
Yes.
So how far was the nearest church to the farm?
We had two sort of centers of church. As young kids, we went to school in a place called Kumcha, and there was a church there which we used to attend. And then in later years, my parents favored Stutterheim.
Okay.
I'm not sure for how that change came about, but there was also actually a church in the village in Kai Road. It was a very active Anglican church, very sweet little church.
Was that the closest one?
Yes, so that was
Kai
the village,
Road.
Kai Road. The village, my parents' address was Rockby Kai Road.
Okay.
Kei Road.
Okay.
And there was a beautiful little stone Anglican church. In fact, I was married there. So was my sister. But over the years, it became a contentious issue with race relations and council changes, in those post-apartheid years. And sadly, I don't think it is used anymore.
I know.
And then at boarding school, we used to get marched off on a Sunday to the Anglican church. Or you'd you'd all get marched off to your various churches. So there was a crew that went off to the Methodist church and a crew that went off to the Catholic church. And we would march down to the Anglican church.
And which crowd looked the happiest?
Well, we're all quite happy because we got to stop at a shop on the way home and buy the Sunday newspaper and get fresh loaves of bread. God,
were those the attractions?
Boarding school was just food was so disgusting. So getting a big fat loaf of fresh white bread, hot out of the oven, was a big deal for us.
With your mom's freshly made farm butter.
No, that hadn't started yet.
Oh.
Yeah. So, that was interesting. And we used to sit in the back row, right in the back pew of this huge church, not pay attention to anything.
And in what town was that?
That was in East London.
Okay.
And we had to go in uniform. So full
God.
school uniform with hats on and socks pulled up to the right point and walking in 2x2 in crocodile.
Oh, my word. So that is what you call organized religion.
Yes, as opposed to organized crime.
I don't know there's much of a difference these days.
Yeah, I haven't actually thought about this for such a long time. It's interesting that you're asking these questions.
But that's what most people say
Yeah.
once we've had the chat. It's kind of, God, we visited things that I haven't even thought of.
Yeah.
It brought up a lot of emotions attached to those type of things. That's why I like doing this. Part of it is opening new or old memories and forming new channels. And then after school, you went to varsity.
Yes. I came to varsity at UCT.
Okay. Why did I think you were a road school?
No, I was at UCT and I started studying speech therapy. And
Another thing I never knew.
I didn't complete that because I stupidly fell in love and was whisked off by this gentleman to live as a farmer's wife in the Eastern Cape. So I had a year to go with my degree and I didn't finish it. But I did a UNISA degree through correspondence, majoring in history and psychology.
In industry?
History. History and psychology. And in terms of religion or spirituality during that phase, I think it was pretty non-existent.
Did your parents freak when you wanted to get married and leave?
Yeah, a little bit. I was quite headstrong, so when I
What
announced
were you thinking?
Well, when somebody sends you like bucket loads of roses and you're a student
Yeah.
and flies you up to Port Elizabeth and you stay over in a hotel and I was a very innocent young girl. I was a virgin and it wasn't like there was a big sexual attraction or that was the driving force. But I suppose I was just bowled over. I'd never had as much attention from a man at all. So that was that. But it didn't last. It lasted for 7 years.
Okay.
And I saw the light.
So the 7 year itch took over.
Indeed. And my life has strangely happened in sort of 7-year periods in a way.
Okay.
So, yeah. My second marriage was also kind of it was longer. It was a 14 years.
I was going to say, that must have been much longer.
Yeah. And what was interesting in my second marriage was that my ex-husband used to hide my spirituality books away because he had an obsession with books being displayed all in order of author and or color or whatever. So all the bookcases were very, very neatly aligned. And every time I tried to sneak my books into the bookcases, they were summarily removed and I was told to put them elsewhere so nobody could see.
My word. I remembered the other day that I was never allowed to have books on my bedside table because I was told it looks unneat.
Really?
Yeah. So now my bedside table looks like hell. It's just books and mostly recovery books and the iPad and my book that I'm reading, my book for my inner child that I'm reading.
Yeah.
So it's total chaos.
I would think that's exactly where you need to have.
So being a farm lady, were you also attached to the Anglican Church and did you have a kind of social responsibility project on the farm where you taught the folk? Because that's what most farm ladies do to keep themselves busy, isn't it?
No, I didn't. For the first year...
So you were, 2021?
I actually turned 22 2 days after our marriage.
Okay. God, that's young.
Yeah, very, very young, very green, very stupid. Should be a law against it. I can remember my mum coming into my room, the night before I got married and saying, it's not too late to change your mind. And her begging with me and saying, you have had so many dreams of traveling and, doing other things, and you're kind of going to put a stop to all of those dreams now. I guess she knew what I was going into, being a farmer's wife.
Yeah, she's had experience. She knew exactly.
Yeah, and it was a very hard environment for somebody who'd come from a liberal university. It was very verkramp and very racist. And I found that extremely hard. But throughout that time, to answer your question, there was we're not church going.
Okay.
And I'm afraid my social responsibility was zero.
Okay.
I baked for the taste never ate, however, which is also a little secret lots of people find amusing.
So what did you bake?
Bake.
Oh, bake.
Baked.
Oh, you baked for them?
Yes.
What did you bake?
I used to bake milk tarts, a variety of muffins, chicken pies, little mini quiches, rusks.
God.
And it was a very beautiful little taste never ate, and it would generate at least 3,000 to 4,000 rand for me.
In those years, that was huge money.
Was very decent money. So I'd spend my evenings, I'd work and then come back, and I think it was an escape from
not having to engage.
Yeah. And I had a domestic helper who'd sort of almost prep a whole lot of stuff during the day for me, and then at night I could just finish it off and wrap, package, and then I'd go in early, go to the gym, go and deliver my stuff, and go to work. So, yeah. Probably why I don't bake anymore.
Mandy is a very good cook, by the way.
I wouldn't say that.
No, you are, definitely. Listen, Mans, and then you came to Cape Town after the divorce.
Yes.
Okay. And that's when we met.
Yes.
Okay.
I came to Cape Town with the intention of going back to UCT to complete my speech and hearing therapy degree. In the time that I had left of that year, which was sort of 7 or 8 months, I needed to find some work to save some money. I started temping, and whilst I was at one company, an agency called me up and said they had this job going, and that was when I went for my interview. And and I think that the only reason I really got the job was because I spoke Xhosa. So I can remember Nancy. I don't know if you remember Nancy. She worked for the managing director as a domestic helper.
Yes, okay, yep.
So Nancy was called in during my interview to actually double check whether I really could speak the language or not.
And she was obviously happy with the result.
Yes, she was. And at that time, for me, it was a well-paid job. And then, of course, it grew. Yeah. And once you're earning money and you've made friends and you've got your feet under the table, I kind of thought, well, why should I go back to university? Yeah. This is far more interesting. And that's where we met.
When I applied for that job, I didn't know what a financial services company did.
Really?
No, I didn't. So in the interview, I was asked, so do you know what a financial company did? And I said, yes. And I just prayed, please don't ask me. Please don't ask me what they do. And I got the job because they were looking for an Afrikaans person.
Okay.
With client services, and that's exactly what I had.
And where were you before that?
I was with government. I was working in the parliamentary sector division of the Department of Public Works and Land Affairs.
Okay.
So when I got that job, it was kind of
And when did you start that job? You started just before me, didn't you?
September 1995.
Okay. Yeah. And I think we had a lot of communication because you used to write the newsletter and you used to have to come and illicit information from me.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, and back to spirituality is, that's when I got to know you, but I immediately liked you. And even though I had no sense of spirituality at that stage, in my head, you had something, I don't know what to call it. There was a sense of calm grace to you, even though you're possibly freaking inside because you just got divorced back in the big city, working for a new company.
Yeah, I think that is it's a funny thing. A lot of people say that, and I will be quivering inside, and yet they say, well, you look so confident and you look so self-assured and calm. But it is a facade that I've managed to pull off.
My mother said that to me once I came into recovery, and we were speaking about something. I said to her, but the problem was my confidence. And she says, but you were always so confident. And I said, well, that was the perfect mask I put on. I had no choice.
My father was horrified the other day when I told him that I had very little confidence myself. It was absolutely flawed. He really could not believe it.
Yeah, we just put that mask on because we have to.
Yeah.
And then you met your ex.
Yes. And then I met my ex, and we had a very happy, I think, 14 years together.
And it was through him that you ended up in Cambodia.
Yes.
You did a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
And mostly to the east.
Yes. For some reason we were drawn there. And so the first time we went to Cambodia, it was a holiday.
Were you then still staying in South Africa?
Yes. And I fell in love with the textiles and the silk. And we were very, very fortunate to meet the owner of the hotel that we stayed in. It was this beautiful old building right on the front of the Mekong. And it had this, typical old colonial front balcony with high ceiling fans. And you could sit there in the evening and watch the locals go by and have their dinner. And there was somebody who pushed a little cart selling fermented eggs, which apparently is a great delicacy in Cambodia.
Apparently, you never had it.
No. And so the second we met the owner of the hotel, and he introduced me to his wife, and she had a beautiful range of clothing. And I've always been dabbling with, clothing and textiles, and that was my great love. And she offered to take me to all of the shops that she used to buy her silk.
Okay.
And then I went to visit a lot of NGOs. There were a hell of a lot of NGOs for people who'd suffered from, I think, birth defects, but also from landmines. And there were a lot of weaving organizations. But I met a wonderful girl called Tanan who had a shop quite near the hotel. And I started buying silk scarves and silk bags that she made.
Okay.
She had a stump on her one hand, and the other hand she had just had I think 2 digits, a thumb and she just fascinated me that she was able to run this very, very beautiful business. And she had a lot of American, particularly, customers, repeat customers. So I used to buy quite a bit from her, and then I used to go into the market and buy. So Cambodia was we probably went there about 3 or 4 times. And from there, we also went on to Laos, to Luang Prabang. And there, of course, you just witness Buddhism. The whole village is really centered around Buddhism and the monastery. And you see these little monks they probably look about 3 or 4 years old, up to like an 85-year-old monk.
Yeah.
And every morning they come out and they do a circuit around the village to collect alms.
Okay.
So people give them food or whatever.
Sorry.
Not arms, Freddie. Not arms with fingers on the end. ALMS. Yeah, no, they're a little more peaceful than that. Yeah, it's not a, yeah.
I could just see this Buddhist. Sorry,
the machete and a machine
the picture
gun.
in my head, kind of smuggling all this stuff underneath those orange robes.
No. Although one of the funny things I did see, and I don't know why I found it so funny, but I saw a Buddhist monk in Phnom Penh hiding behind a car having a cigarette with his yellow umbrella. I took a photograph of him, actually. Yeah.
We all have our vices, don't we?
Yes, exactly.
Sweet.
Exactly, yeah.
So that was where you came in touch with Buddhism. And am I correct if what I'm hearing is what attracted to you was the peacefulness, the forgiving nature? What else was there?
Compassion, and I suppose this ability to accept impermanence, and just a real sense of stillness. Even in the traffic, which was completely wild, it flowed because nobody was aggressive and nobody was in a hurry,
Yeah.
And it was just, everything was just sort of seemed to be strongly rooted in something. A little while later, as you know, we moved to Hong Kong and then to Singapore. And from Singapore, I used to travel a lot to Bali. also to do clothing manufacturing. And Bali is Buddhist, although the rest of Indonesia is Muslim.
Okay.
And staying in Bali and witnessing, the beautiful ceremonies. I mean, every single morning there's sort of a little ceremony with a flower and water, and where they put all these little things out their doors, or in fact in their cars, and the sort of front window ledge of their cars. So you see just this, respect for nature and simplicity. Yeah, resonated with me. So, yeah, it hasn't been a perfect journey, and I don't really understand it fully, but yeah.
Did you feel you were searching for something at that stage in your life? Or did it just happen that this resonated with you when you got in touch with it?
No, I think I was searching. I think I was convinced that there was a higher being, but I didn't really know how to connect with that.
And you felt the need to connect with a higher being.
Yeah. So apart from the Buddhist Center sessions, more recently I went to the School of Philosophy, which in a way, is also searching for that inner being, if you like, and connected with that as your higher being. I am a bit confused about spirituality because I draw a lot from philosophy, and then I draw a lot from Buddhism, and then I sometimes draw something from astrology. So it's still a work in progress, if you like.
But I think everybody's spirituality is a work in progress. It's one of those things, hopefully we continue growing. And as we grow, our spirituality grows with it. And you said earlier that it's kind of a start-stop thing. And I strongly believe that sometimes we need to take a few steps backwards to get the bigger picture, to reassess, to reevaluate before we can move forward.
Yeah, the problem with those stoppages for me is that they are where life starts to get muddled up and go wrong. And I recognize it, and then I immediately get back into my meditation. And it's amazing how centered I am when I am focused on that. And when
Do you
I am
formally
disciplined.
meditate on your bed, on a couch, or?
Mostly on my bed.
I meditate in my bed.
But I try and sit up. I don't lie down
lie
and
down.
meditate. And I sometimes listen to spoken meditation.
Okay. Yeah, I do guided meditation.
Yeah, guided meditation.
I find it non-guided, my head just goes too ballistic, while the guiding just focuses me somehow.
Yeah. It's very difficult to reach that point where your mind is completely still. Yeah, so I guess every time you stop, you almost have to start from scratch again.
So is that for you your spiritual practice, meditation? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you do any form of motivational spiritual reading?
I do. I read a lot of in fact, probably more, 90% of my reading is pretty intense literature.
Okay.
It's about self-improvement and self-awareness, and sometimes I think it would be quite good just to go and read a trashy novel rather.
You're currently reading Joy. What? That
The
Joy,
Book of Joy.
The Book of
Is
Joy.
it called The Book of Joy? The Dalai Lama and
Archbishop Tutu. Yeah. The mutual friend of ours is busy reading at the moment as well. James. He was actually, I did a podcast with him as well. He's busy reading at the moment, also finding it extremely interesting.
Yeah, it's quite simple in a way. I mean, it's just there's a simpleness in its expression.
But isn't that what I think spirituality is trying to teach us, is to take the noise away, strip the bullshit away, and look at the bare necessities, and focus on that bareness and on the necessities of what we need to do. And if we do that, we'll be okay. Because most of life is, the way I look at it, is noise. And if I think about our lives when we met, when we were socializing, that was noise. There was very little real attached to it. It was, that weekend of our 40th birthday party on that boat.
It was completely hedonistic.
Yeah, it was all about hedonism and materialism and things like that. It was lovely. It was fun. But there was very little real connection.
Yeah. No, it was more about connecting with a bottle of wine.
Absolutely.
And the odd-zol.
Totally so.
I seem to remember on that trip. But I think That's exactly it. And there was a sense for me when my second marriage started falling apart. It didn't start. It just sort of quite rapidly crashed.
Completely crashed, yeah.
And that was a very, very tough time for me. And I took myself off for a 2-week diving experience on a little island called Manado off North Sulawesi, where they have magnificent wall diving, scuba diving.
Wall diving.
They call it wall diving because it's sort of down a face of, I guess it's
an underwater cliff.
It's an underwater cliff.
Yeah.
And there the coral is particularly healthy, and you drift. So there's no effort in it. You're vertical, you're not even bothering to kind of swim, you just drift with the current.
Oh my word.
And it is absolutely beautiful. So I took myself off there knowing that I was moving back to South Africa and I needed to do a last dive trip, but also just to be still and kind of try and answer a few questions. And a friend gave me the book, The Monk That Sold His Ferrari, which I'm sure you've read.
Yeah.
And that resonated with me a lot, and it sort of, it made me think a lot about authenticity and wanting to live an authentic existence. Singapore had become a lot about, I think, the trappings of wealth. It was an incredibly hedonistic lifestyle as well. You wanted for nothing. You, as a homemaker, because I couldn't work there, I was there on as a spouse. You did virtually nothing because you had full domestic help. And I had somebody working for me from the Philippines who was a wonderful woman, but she did everything. She cooked, she cleaned, she washed the car, she walked the dogs, she did the grocery shopping.
So what the hell did you do?
No, exactly.
Sorry for sound judgmental, but what the hell did you do?
Exactly. So I swanned around initially, and then that's when I picked up the clothing line because I needed to do something. So I started off with production in Vietnam. And then I was on holiday in Bali, again on a diving trip. And I remember sitting on the dive boat after coming up from a dive, and there was this lovely girl called Bella who we dived with. And I said, "What brings you to Bali?" And she says, "I'm here for 3 months. I have a fashion label in London, and I do production here. So I'm here for 3 months to source fabrics and to create designs and whatever." And she said, "What are you doing?" So I said, "Well, I'm also dabbling in that field, but I don't know where to start." And she said, "Here are the people you can start with."
You have arrived.
She was just incredibly generous.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was the start of my label called White Ginger. So that was really exciting because I spent a lot of time going backwards and forwards to Bali, and they're all, the Buddhism and just the traditions and things were always there to remind you of simplicity.
So you got to absorb.
So I got to do a little bit. I didn't just sit on my backside and do nothing. But it was still a hedonistic lifestyle.
Yeah. Do you find any of the Buddhist simplicity coming through in your clothing line?
Interesting question. No.
I mean, I'm looking at your top you're wearing now, which I know is one of your designs. And in essence, it's very simplistic.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to describe it because there's no additional detail. The detail you've created is from the fabric.
Well, I think it's just all the tucks. And funnily enough, this design is a Balinese design, as you know.
Yeah.
And
see what
Balinese
I mean it's not stuff. It's the fabric that you've used to create all the details.
Yeah.
So in essence, maybe it is really quite simple.
Maybe the Balinese production is more of a Buddhist thing, but my production now in Cape Town, because I now have this label called Sunday Girl, is not at all. And maybe that's an interesting point. Maybe I need to go back there.
Yeah.
Because maybe that's where,
that's where the essence lies. Step into that essence,
and the reason behind getting excited about it.
It will be really interesting to see a combination of kind of African patterned things in a very simplistic, very essence-based, essence-driven design.
Yeah.
There you go. We've just created your new line. What shall we call it?
Afro-Asian.
Simple. I want some of the dumb clothes of yours, please. How did the rug being pulled out from under you in Singapore contribute to your spirituality being back in South Africa? If anything, or did it cause one of those stepping backs, those frozen periods?
I don't think it even caused a frozen period. I think I was so completely...
You were broken.
Yeah, I almost want to say, you sort of, when all your insides have just been ripped out of you.
Yeah.
I was so completely empty, and so devastated and so disbelieving that could have happened in our lives. I drank a lot. I partied hard. I could run like a demon for some reason because I was functioning on pure adrenaline.
Yeah.
So my friends would always say, "But you had like a bottle of red wine last night, but you take off up the hill at great pace." But I was incredibly skinny, very light, and I was eventually warned by a doctor that if I didn't get myself balanced, I was going to have adrenal burnout, and then I was going to have very serious consequences.
That's terrible, adrenal fatigue, eh?
Yeah.
I now know 2 people who suffer from it. Absolutely.
Unfortunately, I didn't ever get there, but I was very close to it, and the lecture was very much taken to heart. So I think my sense of spirituality just it wasn't even revisited. I couldn't focus on anything but my pain.
So you didn't even question. It was too sore to function.
Yeah. And I wish I'd been able to step back into just some kind of stillness. I didn't want to live. I felt I had no more purpose in life. I didn't know how I was going to start again. And yet it was, in the end, I think, my decision to leave. I was unable to forgive.
Yeah.
I couldn't accept the fact that he could value her so highly and was not prepared to distance himself from her for the sake of our relationship. Yeah. He simply did not see that it was a problem. He did not see that it was a problem, that he was essentially, he'd come home from business trips and he'd be buying her presents. And on his birthday, she took him to lunch. And when I asked him if I could take him to lunch, he told me he was busy working. But, as it all came to light, there was this pattern of horrible lies.
So you possibly could have forgiven, but I think the problem was, and that's what my ex said to me as well, is you've shattered the trust so badly that I can never, ever I can't see me building that trust up again. So we can't continue. It's not something that I can see happening ever. So even though forgiveness could step in, the building up of the trust will take so long that you just don't have the energy to do that.
Yeah, and I was so completely broken that I think at a time where there was an opportunity for me to get back together with him, he was living in Japan, and there was no way that somebody in as fragile a state as I was could suddenly uproot
to a new country again,
where I was stuck in the middle of, who knows what, not able to do anything. So that kind of wasn't an option. And I still am sad about it. I still think we buggered up. We really should have worked harder at saving it. But I guess that takes 2 people. And at the same time, I do believe that it has been part of my journey. So I have had to learn lessons.
Yeah. It's so weird. I sometimes look at my situation with my ex as well, and I thought I should have, at that stage, be more assertive and said, let's try. But then if we did, I wouldn't have met Yaku. I would have stood in the way of something absolutely amazing. So it's a very weird thing. I should have, but I'm so glad I didn't.
Yeah.
Because so much good came out of the result of that.
Yeah, but you've also worked incredibly hard at that.
Yeah, no, I've done so.
I think you've done some very, very serious work on yourself and put a lot of energy and effort into it. I've spent the last 5 years feeling sorry for myself and trying to dig myself out of this sadness, and I think I'm getting there now.
So what's the way forward for you? If you think of the year 2018, What would Mandy like to do for her to put her on a true path of spiritual, mental, physical health?
Well, you put it in a nutshell, because it's exactly what I actually enunciated to somebody the other day. It was that I have neglected all 3 of those areas of my life in the last 3 months, and they all need attention. And the person I was chatting to said, you must trust that there is somebody out there that you can talk to in whatever form. Don't try, if you can't believe it from a sort of a Christian perspective or whatever perspective, even if it's talking to your mum as a spirit out there, just trust that there is help out there. You're not on your own.
If we say it in recovery, if you can't in the beginning have that trust, fake it. Fake it until your brain starts believing.
Okay.
And a lot of us say, but we work on a program of honesty. That's lying. You know what? It's surviving.
Yeah.
If you have to lie to yourself that little lie in the beginning just to get yourself going, then by all means, just.
Well, after this conversation, which was with my dad, and I spoke to him the next day, and I said, "Hey, Dad, I did what you told me, and nobody's answered. So I'm still waiting for an answer." And he said, "You just keep going, my girl." So, but I think it's very poignant for me for 2018, and it's going to be a year of building and really looking after my physical, mental, spiritual needs, and building
that will
myself.
entail meditation, exercise, eating healthy, because both of us have kind of had a good 2017 if you look at us.
Freddie, it's just been completely indulgent and over the top. So no more peanut butter sandwiches, no more midnight snacking, no more binging on champagne. It's just, all got to go. And it has to be about, I'm 50 now, and I have to, not only do I need to set a sail secure financially, I need to get my act together now.
Yeah.
Aches and pains start setting in now if you don't look after yourself.
Tell me about it.
And living on your own living on my own has not been easy. Some people enjoy it. I don't find it easy to go out to restaurants on my own.
Yeah. Then on the other hand, you've got the perfect guy magnet at the moment.
Yeah, but
she's got a 6-month-old golden retriever puppy who is absolutely gorgeous. And that is a guy magnet.
Yeah, but I missed the signals. So I was having lunch with my sister-in-law just recently in Scarborough, and this gorgeous guy came over, and he said, "May I?" And I said, "Of course." And he was loving Ben and really, really engaging with him. And Dawn was looking at me with big eyes. And I was like, "What?" Afterwards she said, "You completely missed the cue."
So there's something to meditate.
And there I am wearing this blooming great big.
So take that
the
off.
Toilet ring, as we discussed.
Move the toilet ring to the other finger.
On my wedding hand. So, I don't know.
Because that is something that says I'm not available.
Yeah, I think I give out very strong signals that I'm not available, and I'm trying to open up that heart.
So maybe actively meditate on help me to open my eyes to what I'm supposed to see. Because you're probably not seeing what you're supposed to be seeing.
Yeah. And when I came back, I did a lot of... But it's a very spiritual process of connecting with your guides. She works subtly over your body, almost without touching your body.
Sounds like a Reiki-ish.
I think it is Reiki. I think it might be Reiki. And every time I went to her, she'd say, "Your heart is completely closed." So she obviously worked with the chakras as well. And she said, "Until you open this heart, you're not going to move out of this." And every discipline that I went to see, so whether it was the astrologist that I was going to see, or whether it was the Reiki specialist, or whether it was, I saw all manner of people trying to find a centeredness. They all came up with the same thing. And they said, "Well, are you surprised?" It's kind of, this is what life is trying to teach you.
So the mission for 2018 is to open the heart to whatever that means.
And maybe I need to do that symbolically, I mean, maybe it needs to be, I don't know, my house needs to be covered in hearts.
Yeah. Remind you of something, yeah. Oh. Meditate on it. Become quiet on it and see what... For me, during meditation, a lot of arbitrary stuff pop into my head. And once I finish meditating, I can actually put meaning to them. And then the thing is, once I've got the meaning, I need to take the action to make it happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just a meaningless or whatever.
Yeah.
And my answer, especially to my clients, always ask, what you've got to lose? What do you have to lose to open your heart? You've got so much to gain. With that note, I think we'll end it right there.
Oh, wow.
That's just the perfect place to stop.
Great.
You've got so much to gain by opening your heart. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You must have a wonderful rest of your day.
And you too. And a good 2018.
As well to you. Thanks, Mans. Well, that was fun. I now feel closer to Mandy than ever before. I'm so grateful that we had this time to talk about her spiritual journey. I know her return to South Africa has been incredibly difficult for her, but I am really happy to see that she seems to be finding both a physical and spiritual place again. I love a new house with its beautiful, calming views of the sea, and would any day pop in to take Ben, the golden retriever puppy, for a walk. It even seems as if our visit and energy in the house brought her cat, Katie, back home. Katie left when Ben arrived. I hope the family will now live happily in their new little piece of heaven. If you have any feedback or remarks, please feel free to pop me an email or connect on social media. It will be great to hear from you. If you want to know more about what I do, please feel free to connect with me on my website, which is www.freddy.org.za, or find me on Facebook at www.facebook.com/freddy.org.za, or on Twitter at @RensburgFreddy. Remember that Freddy is always spelled with an IE at the end. Be safe. Bye.